So that is interesting. You know, snap a picture of that. All right, if you get the presentation from the other one I gave, the last one about overcoming 4, this is part of it, okay? So it will be in there. Now, what about cholesterol? For plaque progression associated with the clogged arteries to cease, it appears the cholesterol has to be below what? 100 and what? 50. All right? Lower to that of the average pure vegetarian. So the average pure vegetarian has a cholesterol level below what? A 150, right? Because relatively few persons are willing to abide by a vegetarian lifestyle, lipid-lowering drugs are required for most people to reach 150, American Journal of Cardiology. So having a lower cholesterol level is a significant factor in lowering one's risk of heart disease. So the real problem is not the fact that that my heart gives out, right? It's the fact that my lifestyle is such that what? My cholesterol is up and all of these issues come. So the problem is not heart disease, right? Heart disease is the what? It's the result. It's the symptom. It's the sign, right? It's not the cause. The cause is with us. It's with me. So we need to make the adjustment. Now, the Nurses' Health Study looked at how many nurses? Followed them up for 35 years, and they looked for lifestyle factors that were linked to who lived longer and who what? Who died. All right. Now, one of the conclusions they came to is this here. People who eat the equivalent of cholesterol in 1 egg a day, right, reduce their life expectancy by comparison to an individual that smoked 5 cigarettes for 15 years. So if you compare the individuals in the study that smoked 5 cigarettes for 15 years, their life expectancy was the same as those who ate equivalent to 1 egg a day. You follow me? On the positive side, those who ate the equivalent of 1 bowl of oatmeal a day and 2 handfuls of nuts a week lived as long as those who jogged over 4 miles a day. So, those who jogged 4 miles a day lived as long as those who ate a bowl of oatmeal and 2 handfuls of nuts a week. Now, that's not saying that you don't exercise, all right? You don't give it up, but it's telling you the power of what? Food. The amount of fiber in 1 bowl of oatmeal, when those individuals were compared, they actually lived longer than those who did all that jogging. All right? What about 11 days? 500 meat eaters were put on a vegan diet for how many days? 12 days. All right. The average blood pressure dropped in those that had high blood pressure, if you can see in the dark area, 17 points systolic and 13 points diastolic. In how many days? 12 days. Eating a whole plant food diet. Now, would you get that sort of drop if you were started on some drug medication for hypertension? For cholesterol lowering. Would it lower it that much in 12 days? No. The power is in the plants, right? Plant medicine, wonderful. Cholesterol dropped 11%, and the average weight loss was how many pounds? In how many days? 12 days. Now, this whole plant food diet, he didn't add any oils. They didn't give him any nuts or seeds, just your beans, your vegetables, your fruit, in as natural state as possible. And he said you can eat as much as you want. And they lost an average of what? 5.5 pounds. Not counting calories, right? Just making sure they eat the whole plant food in as natural a state as possible. Nothing refined, no free oils, no nuts, no seeds. eat until they're satisfied, and they all lost weight. What about positive moods? Do people on average who eat a plant-based diet have more positive moods than those on average who eat an animal-based diet? Well, that's a good question, right? 2-week study. They took half a group. They were all eating your average American diet, right? They tested the mood scores, right? Half of them, they put them on a what? Total plant diet, and the others, they let them stay. And then they tested their mood scores again. And of course, the mood scores improved significantly in those who are eating a meat-based diet who were put in a vegetarian diet. Now, 2 other studies found similar results, one involving Japanese men, and the other young people who ate the most greens and fruit. So young people who eat large fruits and grains, fruits and green vegetables had more positive moods than the young folk that didn't have the greens and the fruits. All right? So one way, I mean, they have even did this in various correctional facilities. You know, the level of discord and behavior, and they've changed the diet, right? And they've looked at them, and guess what happened? Things just calm right down just by changing what they eat. But why? Meat-eating diets boost the blood levels of arachidonic acid, which promotes brain changes that can disturb the mood. So that's one of the factors that can be related to that. Now, what about that happy brain chemical, neurotransmitter called serotonin? Now, there are foods, plant foods, that have that in it. You know, so for people who are depressed and their moods are not too well, cabbage, Chinese cabbage, spinach, tomatoes, plantain, pineapple, bananas, kiwi, and plums, right? All have this chemical. Antidepressant drugs work by boosting the brain's level of serotonin. Why not get it from foods with no side effects? Isn't that amazing? Half the solutions for all the so-called problems are actually in the foods. And if we follow and apply that, we can receive benefit. What about dementia? We've known almost 20 years that compared to long-time vegetarians, those eating meat, including poultry and fish, what is this? Appear to what? Have 3 times the risk of developing dementia. An elevated cholesterol level is associated with increased risk of dementia. And I'm not going to go into all the whys. In one study, the most pronounced positive cognitive association was seen for carrots, cruciferous vegetables. Anybody know what cruciferous vegetables are, right? Your broccoli, your kale, your cabbage, right? Brussels sprouts. Remember we had those, right? All of those. Now the cruciferous vegetables are also important for problems like cancer, right? And detoxification. And you have probably heard a lot about detoxification. They try to get you to buy all this stuff, right? You go for a detox. But if you ate a lot of cruciferous vegetables, right, that will help your body's ability to detoxify, help your liver work real wonderfully. Okay, what about cancer? Now, you see that? Over to the left, you see a small tumor, right? The second piece over, you see it look like something sprouting. You see that? And the third, you see it going right into it, right? Now, a tumor, now all of us have cancer cells in the body. However, our cancer cells cannot grow beyond the size of the tip of a pen without a blood supply, right? Cancer cells release chemicals that cause the blood vessels to sprout into the tumor and cause it to grow. However, plants contain many powerful chemicals that block cancer growth factor. All right? So, check this out. Antioxidants are chemicals high in plants that slow down the aging process and do what? Prevent cellular damage that can lead to and many other diseases. Now, the average antioxidant content of plant foods is 1,157 units, okay? The average antioxidant content of animal products is 18 units, okay? The average 1,157 versus what? So if you want to get your antioxidant level up, what you should be eating? Plants, right? Now, plants on average are 64 times more potent than animal products in anti-aging chemicals. Now, let's take it a step farther. Let's look at prostate cancer. There were 93 patients with PSA levels 4 to 10, etc. And guess what they did? Half of them, they put them on a vegan diet, and the other, they leave their diet as it was, right? So they already had markers for, prostate cancer growth. Now, none of the vegetarian group, but 6 of the meat-eating group underwent conventional treatment due to an increase in PSA level or progression of disease, but none in those that were on the plant-based diet. Isn't that amazing? Now, PSA level decreased 4% in the vegetarian, but it increased 6% in the meat-eating group. What they did, they took blood from the patients on the vegan diet, and they had some petri discs, and they had cancer cells in it, right? And they put the blood on it to see what would happen, right? Would the blood inhibit the cancer cell growth? And guess what? The blood in the persons that ate only plants inhibited cancer cell growth by 70%. The blood in those who were on the regular diet only reduced it by what? 9%. So you got a 70% decrease versus a 9%. So you can see the impact of eating a whole plant food diet. Oops. Now, researchers looked at a whole lot of vegetables, and they wanted to find out which ones are most potent at inhibiting cancer cells. So they tested over 30-something vegetables, and these were the ones they came up that had the most potent inhibitory effect. Brussels sprouts, cabbage, curly cabbage, garlic, green onions, kale, leek, and spinach. Inhibits prostate cancer, stomach cancer, brain cancer, lung cancer, pancreatic and kidney cancer growth by more than how much? 50%, and leeks and garlic by 95 to 100% in all of the cancers. So what we need to do, you have, somebody tells you you have this or that, or you have risk for that, eat these foods. Now, there are 2 families of vegetables that are in there. The cruciferous family, right? And you got the onion family. Leeks and garlic and green onion, they're all in the same family. These 2 powerful families are very effective at fighting against cancer. Pomegranate. These patients, they gave them 8 ounces of pomegranate juice daily, and the PSA doubling time, the time it actually decreased from 15 months to 54 months. That means the growth and development was significantly less just by doing what? Drinking pomegranate juice. Another assay where they dropped it on the petri dish, a 12% decrease in cell proliferation and a 17% increase in actually programmed cell death. That's what that word actually means, so that the cancer cells degenerate, right? They die. Now, some researchers decided they wanted to figure out which foods had the most predominant effect on prostate cancer. However, researchers wanted to discover which animal products increase the risk of prostate cancer progression. So someone has it, right? Now, what will tend to cause it to progress? This is what they discovered. Eating less than 1 egg a day doubled the risk of prostate cancer progression. So you have it already, right? But whether or not it progresses, right? Just by eating less than 1 egg a day, it doubled the risk of cancer progression. Eating less than 1 serving of chicken a day quadrupled the risk of prostate cancer cell progression. 4 times the risk, less than 1 serving a day. Now, what about oral cancer? Precancerous lesions in the mouth, they rub the gel made with black raspberry into the cheeks. You follow me? 4 times a day for 6 weeks. The response to this treatment ranged from modest improvement to complete clinical regression, meaning the growth disappeared. In fact, tumor suppressor genes were turned back on, inhibiting cancer cell growth just by taking black raspberry gel and rubbing it on that area. You can eat it, you can put it externally, and it still helps to bring about regression. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. The power of plant foods. What about esophageal cancer and strawberries? In this study, they freeze-dried the strawberries, turned it into a powder that the people took every day, but it was equivalent to 1 pound of strawberries for 6 months. Guess what happened? The cancer progression reversed. In 80% of patients at the end of the study, 50% of participants were disease-free just by consuming strawberries. The power of food, right? So don't believe it when they say there's nothing we can do. We need to commit what we know and then entrust ourselves to who? To God. And God works with us when we cooperate with him. When we obey the laws that he has given us and then entrust him to do beyond that, then he comes in and he does amazing things. Now, methionine is an amino acid. Now, it's a protein building block, just like the links in a chain make up a chain, or the letters in the alphabet make up words. So, methionine, now animals with the lowest concentration of methionine in their tissues live the longest. So, if you want to live the longest, you want to have low concentrations of what? Methionine. That's the idea behind it. Too much methionine acts as a pro-oxidant which accelerates aging, cellular damage, and disease. Cancers of the colon, breast, skin, ovaries, and prostate are dependent on methionine survival, or they will what? Okay, so here you have these cancers, right, that are dependent on methionine, or they will what? So then, what do you want to do to inhibit those cancer cells from growing? You want to decrease what? You want to find what foods are lowest in methionine, because if I consume those foods, then what? I can help starve those cancers. All right? All right. Normal healthy sized cells thrive without methionine. So what has happened? Chemo drug companies are working on drugs to block methionine absorption. Now, a better solution to fight cancer may be to eat only foods what? Low in methionine. Now, the question is, what foods are low in methionine? You see the graph? Fruits have on average how many? 2. Nuts, 26. Vegetables, 39. Grains, 46. Beans, what? 81. So you can see that all plant foods have less than what? Than 100, right? Milk is 177. Beef is 185. Eggs, 229. Chicken, 145, and fish 583. So, you know the foods that have the highest level of methionine, and methionine feeds certain cancers. So you want to make sure that you're eating on this side as your major focus, and really be careful about that side there. All right? You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. The lies will keep you in bondage, right? And keep you sick and getting sicker. But the truth will set you free. And there are those who do not want you to know what the truth is, because it's against what supports what they're really trying to do, and it has a lot to do with finance and wealth. The love of money is the root of all evil, and it leads right back to that mighty dollar. All right. Nobody's saying anything to me, so I can keep going. Addicted to... Yes. Can I go back to the last slide? Okay. Even if you just write the numbers down. Okay? Not, you got it? All right. So we want to stick right on here, right? Right? And that's why sometimes when people go on, like, some people who have gone on what we call a macrobiotic diet or what have you, the physician said there's nothing we can do. It's stage 4. And some people have radically changed their diet and gone. All right? That's one of the potential reasons why. Now, the biggest challenge is food, right? A lot of what we talked about thus far is related to a lot of things we like to consume. And even if we know that something is not necessarily the best, we still may sometimes what? Still do it. Now, there's another reason for that, and that's what we call addiction, right? All right, a food addiction is a relationship with food that gives the illusion that what? Met through a mood change. So you feel your mood changes, right? But are you really better off? No. Anticipation, happiness, fulfillment, comfort, stimulation, fun, but it never ends. Now, body systems that enable us to enjoy enough to maintain energy balance go out of control when animals and humans have easy access to which foods? High sugar, high fat, high salt, hyper palatable foods. So you have a control mechanism that's built into your body, right? And it tells you when to stop. You had enough, right? So you can push away. If you're consuming foods that have high concentration of these, it overrides your ability to control. And then you taste that and you can't stop, right? You can't have just one, right? So this is what it does. It overrides. Now, is that by design? Of course it's by design, right? They took some rodents, they gave them a 10% solution of water, or gave them healthy food to eat. And guess what happened? The healthy appetite of the rodents became perverted, and the animals literally drank themselves to death. Choosing the nutrient deprivation rather than a healthy diet, many of us are doing what? This addiction, right? And so foods are created for that very purpose, so that we would lose personal control and that we would consume them for life. Of course, highly palatable foods and addictive drugs share the common neural pathways. Excess sugar causes addiction and symptom withdrawal like drugs, and the neurons respond to the hyperpalatable food by firing more, creating increased drive. The mere touch of sugar on the tongue produces an immediate endorphin what? These opiates produced by eating high sugar, high fat foods can also what? Relieve pain or stress and calm us down, but these effects are what? There you go. So We want relief from pain. We want relief from stress. And we want to calm down, right? So we're upset at this person. We're mad. And so what do? We go and get this food, right? And what it does, it gives us, calm us. But it's a temporary. It doesn't really solve what's really going on. Yes? Yes, it's like a low-grade addiction. Yes. They're sedating us, they're controlling us, they're doing all sorts of things. And killing us. Yes.
Why do you refer to it as a low-grade addiction?
Well, it's probably not. I guess so, but it's not as you're not sweating, you're not falling out. Although your behavior sometimes, but I got to get this. I have got to get this. So it's probably not as traumatic as a withdrawal from some of those drugs, which you would actually die if you were to rapidly withdraw from it, right? You're not going to die. You may feel like it, right? But you're not going to die if you stop eating all of these highly concentrated. Yes. Am I to continue? All right. All right. Unfortunately, this addictive relationship is by design from the food industry for one purpose, and that is for what? Money. So the whole idea is that, in their own words, they tell us, the food industry is the manipulator of the consumer's minds and desires. Are you comfortable with that statement? Anybody who's comfortable with that statement? Yeah? You're comfortable with it? You're comfortable with the fact that they're telling you that the food, they manipulate your minds, your desires are manipulated and controlled by the food industry. Okay. That is true. But you are comfortable with someone saying, I control you?
No.
Yeah. So, in other words, when you're going around and saying, well, I'm going to eat this anyway, right? But do you know what's really happening? You're not even in control. Somebody else is controlling you. You think you're in control because you're eating this. I can eat what I want. I like this, right? But do you know that somebody else is controlling you? Do you want to relinquish control to someone else? You're a puppet on a string, and they pull it, right? When they want to pull it, right? Right? You go to this banquet, right? Right? And it's an all-you-can-eat banquet, right? Is this a good plan to follow? When you have 20 different options to choose from, it's not a safe environment. It's setting you up for failure. Because what we decide in our minds is, I'm going to have a little piece of everything. And by the time we got to the, right? If it encourages us to overeat, we should not consume large varieties of food at one meal. It actually encourages overeating. So, food is escape. That's what they're telling you. More and more, growing levels of stress create a need for indulgence. Does stress create a need for indulgence? It's the solution to stress, indulgence. Who believes that? Is indulgence the solution to stress? No. But that's what they're saying, right? Indulgence in premium snacks is a self-centered activity, a small moment of me time, right? Relaxation. You know what premium snacks are, right? Nobody knows what premium snacks are? Haagen-Dazs and these things that melt in your mouth and make you feel like you've gone somewhere. All of it is designed with one purpose in mind. To keep you coming back. That's the only purpose. It's not for your health, not for your well-being. It's to give you a temporary fix of feeling, but nothing of any substance. So you're left empty.
So you're really saying that by design, the food industry has
Yes, the comment was the food industry, by design, has created foods to give you that addictive quality. And yes, that is it. That is by design. It's no mistake, and it's for a purpose. And it's not a high purpose, it's a low purpose. But that's where it's at. So, food that satisfies all the senses, hot and cooly, spicy and sweet, crunchy and creamy, bitter and salty, working together with enticing aroma to create a multi-sensory experience of flavor utopia. Happiness in life is a feeling. What a lie. And we're buying into this utopia. Man, I don't care about the sermon, but man, after the sermon, there's a banquet. And if you want to get people to somewhere, bring food. They'll show up in droves. They will show up. Never mind the sermon, the meal. And if you go too long, we're out of here, because stomach is calling us. That is a sad reality as to where you really are and who really pulls the strings and what is most important to you in life. It's about another God. And it's not the God of creation and redemption. It's the God of food and pleasure and self-indulgence. But the end result are the ways of death. And you got heart disease and diabetes and all of these issues, and then they pack you with all these pills, right? And then the health care cost is not sustainable, right? And then it's billions of dollars, right? And you get these billion-dollar patch-up, right? Bypass and all of this, right? $100,000 per operation, right? Right? And it doesn't even solve the problem. It's a patch-up. Patch-up plumbing. And then you go back and you continue to do what you did before, right? And they send you back and get another patch-up, right? And who's making, and in America, it's a $100 billion business just for heart disease. $100 billion. Can you imagine? How much would it take to educate people to eat properly? $100 billion? No, far less than that. But do you know they funnel $100 billion for that? And you know how much they funnel in education and lifestyle? A few pennies. A few pennies, right? What are you going to do? Are you going to fall into this trap and continue this? Or are you going to say, well, listen, I'm not going to settle for this, I'm not going to settle this. Our business is to make something taste like something, even if it's not. We transform technology into good taste. Taste to excite, stimulate, comfort, and linger. Make something taste like it's something, even if it's what? And a lot of stuff out there is absolutely nothing in it, right? You'd be better off eating the box. I'm telling you, but it gets even deeper. Does your mouth water? I want some of that. Somebody just said, I want some of that. You see the power? You see the power? The minute you see it, it brings back memories. And you say, man. You know what I think of when I see that? Death. Disease. Destruction. Death. Now, why do I say that? Okay, you need to change your perception before your feelings will change and your behavior will change. If you define something bad as though it's good, you will feel good about it and you will go and do it. But if you reframe how you view it, your feelings will change and your behavior will change, and you will see it as repulsive as it really is if your perceptions of it change. So far, we've talked about the manipulation, yes? Before that, we looked at some of the chronic diseases and how these things that we really like actually contribute to them. But we're going to look a little bit at another factor about your immune system. And you know your immune system is responsible for keeping things in check, right? Right? And this study just looked at teaspoons of sugar and the number of bacteria destroyed in a 30-minute period, right? No sugar, 14, right? 24 teaspoons of sugar, how many bacteria? 1. Okay, so if you want a well-functioning immune system, you don't want to be consuming a whole lot of sugar. That's basic, right? Does it make sense? 24 teaspoons of sugar, the amount in 2 sodas, reduces the white blood cell ability to destroy bacteria by how many percent? After 2 hours, and still 20% 5 hours later. Can you imagine that? 5 hours later. So you have a couple of sodas, and 5 hours later, your immune system is still depressed 20%. And what happens 5 hours later? You're going to end up getting something else, right? So you have a chronically suppressed immune system, right? Because every day you're eating these high concentrated sugars. So some virus, some toxin, something comes in the environment, and what happens to your immune system? You're overtaken, right? Then you're out of work, right? Right? And you got problem X, Y, and Z. And the solution is right back with those wonderful things you had at your party or at your meeting. You know, we have these meetings, and they bring out the donuts and all of that other stuff, right? And we are the executive or the individuals who run the business, right? Or what have you, right? And this is what we're doing. No. Cancer cells consume 10 to 50 times more glucose than normal cells. And when you think about that, we are stopping right here. Think about it. So we are feeding what we shouldn't be feeding. So I want to encourage you to remember that healing takes place when we do what? Cooperate with God's plan. And part of that plan He has given us is whole plant foods as the major source of your food. Anything else should be taken more like a spice or a seasoning rather than the main course. And if you keep that in mind and apply it, you will be benefited. Thank you.